My name is Alicia Shapiro with AInews.com, and welcome to another episode of our Driving Tomorrow Conversations with Industry Leaders, where we explore the latest developments and real world applications of artificial intelligence. Today, I'm excited to be speaking with Jon Stokes, the co founder of Symbolic.ai, a company focused on helping publishers move beyond AI experimentation into practical, responsible, everyday use. In this conversation, we'll explore how AI is being integrated into modern newsroom workflows, what readiness actually looks like for publishers, and how leaders are balancing speed with trust, and what AI adoption means for both large media organizations and smaller independent newsrooms. So thank you so much for joining me today, Jon.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Oh, yeah, it's great to have you here. I'm looking forward to our conversation today. So I'm going to start with the problem inside modern newsrooms that Symbolic was built to solve and what it needs to be in place before a newsroom is ready to move from experimentation to full operation use. So can you talk a little bit about that problem that Symbolic solves and what needs to be in place before we can use AI fully?
Yeah, so this is one of those things where Gen AI is a little bit weird in terms of product development and go to market. I talk to my friends who are in other industries that use Gen AI. I mean, like maybe pharma, stuff like this. It's not like you're selling a CRM software or a
Right.
word processor or something where there's an existing thing that you do in the newsroom and you're like, well, you should use our thing instead of this other thing. So people at their desk when they're working, there's no AI shaped hole in their workflow that they experience as a lack, or you have to file expense reports. And so you use some software for that, or even with something recently. So, for instance, with COVID, a couple of years back, we started with the online grocery thing where
Oh,
you
right.
do your groceries online and you drive and they drop them off in your car. So, this was a thing that kind of accelerated with COVID. It was like, okay, well, I'm already grocery shopping. Now I'm grocery shopping on my phone, but it's the same kind of activity. And now I'm just doing it with a slightly different interface and it's faster. And there's logistically, it's a little different, but it's the same kind of task. I go in, I select food, I add it to a cart, I check out, but then I drive to the store and somebody loads it in my trunk, versus going around and doing it manually. AI is different. AI is in an enterprise workflow. It's like, people are doing different parts of their job. Some person is copy editing, some person is doing research, some person is managing socials and drawing up headlines. Editors are doing different types of editing. Maybe they're doing like ideation, like story discovery. Maybe they're doing content edits, line edits. Maybe they're scheduling. And so these people all have different tools that they use. And you kind of want to go in and understand where are the pain points, what is slow, what is the thing that you hate doing, and can we or can we not use Gen AI for this particular thing that you're doing and get like a significant speed up that's going to save money. It's like, okay, well, this is just going to do your job for you, which in some cases it does, right? You were doing this, now this is like kind of automated and the bot does it so you don't have to do it. In some cases, there were people doing it. There were budget cuts. The people got fired. Now nobody does it. And so now we can come in and we can do it again with AI. So a good example is our fact checker.
Mm.
So we have a fact checking interface that works super duper well. So it will fact check a complete document. And when I say fact check, just to be clear, I don't mean we tell you what is true and false in this document according to some like platonic objective standard of what. No, it's more like we tell you what is supported or unsupported by the evidence that we can find. So if there's a statement in the document and it's got some claims in the statement, we'll extract the claims and then we'll say, this claim that you made about the economy is supported by these numbers that we found. This other claim that you made about this particular company and their earnings is not supported because the earnings were this and you said they were this. Or we'll say it's refuted. So it's
Right.
supported or refuted. And we're looking for high quality sources to do that, some of which you gave, some of which you didn't give. But to go back to the workflow automation thing, so fact checking is an example of something that just got cut. In newsrooms, there were fact checkers, and then they're okay, well, we're just going to get rid of the fact checkers and expect people to fact check their own story, or maybe there's just no fact checking now.
Yeah.
Now, not all newsrooms, a lot of big newsrooms still have fact checkers, right? But in a lot of web publications and stuff like this, that just maybe even it never was a thing. I know at Ars Technica, we didn't hire like fact checking as a role. It was on the reporters to do their own homework. And then Really, honestly, what would happen is the commenters would like service any bugs in the article like within the first hour, and then you would go fix them. So this is a type of work that takes a long time. It's kind of labor intensive. It's specialized. There are certain things that you know to do. There's a routine, there's a checklist. People that do this professionally, they have a process, and it can take a couple hours to do like a good job. So we have a tool that automates this, and then you just can kind of step through these different claims in the article, and you can see that they're supported or refuted and why. And maybe you disagree with the bot, or maybe you don't. Maybe you want to accept that or make a change or something like this. And so I use this now. I still publish periodically. And so I use this on all my work. And it's great because it catches material errors. We've also done things like there was a recent New York Times obituary of somebody famous that had a number of corrections appended to the bottom. We
Oh,
pasted it into our fact checker without the corrections, and the fact checker found all the errors itself. So we're like, yeah, if the Times had run this obituary through our fact checker, we would have found those errors before they got kind of embarrassingly posted as corrections. So this is a type of labor that it just we reduce it from hours to just a few minutes. And it's an automation. It's very much like factory automation. The analogy that I use is like you've got a factory and different people are at different parts of an assembly line and they're doing certain kinds of repetitive things. And then you might go in and stand over their shoulder and watch them do the repetitive thing and be like, we'll make a robot that does exactly this thing that's repetitive. And so we'll do that, we'll prototype it, and then we'll try to like slot it in, and then they'll watch the robot go and they'll be like, yes, it's working, or no, it's not working, it needs these tweaks. And so then once we get the thing working where it doesn't need tweaks, then we'll find another place and we'll do that. And so if we find a couple of places that maybe have some commonalities, then we can extract a feature or a platform-wide capability out of that. So it's a really different thing than there is a problem that the newsrooms have, and then we're going to go in and solve this specific problem. Enterprise newsrooms have a specific problem, which is what do we do about Gen AI? And so, for all of these companies, any newsroom you can name, there is somebody whose job it is, either full time or significantly on their plate, to think, okay, AI is a thing. What are we going to do about AI? How is this going to change our news process? We know it's going to affect what we do. We know that these are new capabilities, and these people can think of their own solutions, their own answers. They all use ChatGPT. They all use Perplexity. And so they can kind of ideate to a certain degree. Some of these newsrooms go further and they prototype internally. They try things out. They try to build their own internal tooling. Some of them are just kind of shopping around, taking demos. But all newsrooms do have a single, like, AI shaped meta problem, which is okay, this is a thing. It's obviously huge. What do we do? And so that's been great for us. We get meetings because we have the thing that is the answer to the problem of what do we do about AI? But that's a slightly different question than the way that you framed it.
yeah,
But I think it's related.
it is. Can you talk about that a little more? Like, what does a newsroom who is trying to figure out how to use AI, how does that work into what your tools do?
This happens in different ways, but there's a concept in AI and machine learning called the local minimum, which is that you use something called gradient descent and you kind of iterate around until you kind of end up in a part of the problem space where you've kind of got to a local minimum and everybody's sort of clustered there. And we'll use this like idiomatically to say when I'm in a local minimum, it means me and a bunch of people in my cohort are having the same ideas. And so when we demo these tools, always, 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 they're like, oh, we tried to do this, or oh, we were working on this exact same thing, or like, can it do this? And we'll be like, it can't do it right now, but I'm working on it in the other tab while we're having this meeting. It's on the roadmap, and I'm running a test in the background on this thing you're asking me about. So, because our team is so news heavy, I mean, I come out of independent media. I've worked for big media for Condé Nast briefly after we sold ours. I've worked in multiple independent media shops. My co-founder, Devin Wenig, he ran Reuters for like a decade. So he has a big media background. Our biz dev team, our head of product, started out in journalism before going into tech and being a product person. Our biz dev head was at the Wall Street Journal for like 25 years and
Wow.
then was at Dow Jones after that for licensing stuff. So the team is a media heavy team. And so when we ideate and when we think of problems and we try to solve problems, we do it with this like deep kind of bench of newsroom experience, kind of practical newsroom experience. So we tend to think of the same things that our potential customers are trying to think of. And this also works for corp comms and PR. News is really only kind of half of our target
Mhm.
audience. The other half of our customer profile would be corporate comms, PR departments. And they have a very similar set of like constraints and demands and things like this. It's not entirely the same. Corp comms and PR, the way that we framed it internally is like there's an event, like there's a launch. So that's T0. So we're going to launch a new car, we're going to launch a new phone, something like this. So that's the T0 moment. Corp comms and PR come in, they're engaged before T0, like T minus 1 month, T minus like 1 week, something like this, where they're building up to the launch and they're assembling assets and they have a need for privacy and security. They have a need to gate things by different kinds of teams. And so if you're on a team for a particular launch and other people aren't read into that, they don't need to be on that team or know what those assets are about. And so we divide the app up internally this way. And so they're going to work against the timetable to produce some kind of public artifact or set of artifacts. And so maybe there's a video, podcast, transcript, maybe there's a press releases, other kinds of things in support of like interview briefing documents for a CEO. Maybe the T0 event is earnings. And so you're briefing the CEO on earnings. And so you're going to use Symbolic to prepare these briefing materials. And so then at T plus one, you've got maybe the breaking news people and like the people that are trying to quickly jump on the event and like make news out of it. And then like later, T plus in whatever, then it becomes like a sort of a fact of history or like a later thing. And so you have people that are doing analysis or that are trying to pull context because now they're at T plus one or they're at T minus one on some other event and they need some historical context. And so they're going to pull that material in, whether it's a news story or it's some previous pre-launch material from another campaign. And so the patterns and the workflows are really similar. The automation problems are similar. They're just clustered differently around these kind of signature timing events.
That makes sense. I love how all of your team are experienced publishers, media, and so you're solving something that you know is a problem too. And I'm sure that helps because once a newsroom decides it is ready for I wonder how leadership gets to the point where they're like, yes, let's go ahead and use it. But I wondered if it's growth and differentiation or cost and efficiency pressures or some mix of both that gets the leadership of a newsroom to say, yes, let's use AI, or how do you counter that?
It's cost. I mean, all
Hmm.
newsrooms are cost sensitive. PR and corp comms, everybody is, but newsrooms are often under immense cost pressure and they see the kind of benefits that programmers get from something like Claude Code or
Mm,
Codex or something. And they're like, if we could pull that kind of efficiency into the news process,
yeah.
and speed things up and increase quality, increase output, something like this, save people's time. And one thing that we like to think about is there's different ways to realize the gains that you get
Hmm.
with AI. You get time back, you get cycles back, you might say. And so then what do you do with those cycles? I guess there's two paths. One of those paths is, okay, this reporter now has 5 extra hours today because they're using AI and they're faster, just to
Mhm.
make up a number. Are we going to have them write 5 more stories? Or are they going to write one story more deeply where they can pick up the phone and call people or drive out to a site or something like this? You're going to have some people that are going to do the former. They're going to increase the volume, and you're going to have some people that are going to do the latter because of the way that Gen AI has played out with the torrents of slop on the
Hmm.
internet, Google is penalizing that stuff. Google is also just like the returns to SEO are going down. Google has the summaries at the top of the page. And so the old model of throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and see what sticks, where it was a volume game, I think that's not viable.
Hmm.
So turning the knob up on the quality dial is like a thing that you can differentiate with. So if you can
Yeah.
recoup time, you can turn the knob up on the quality dial, and then you can still continue to attract direct paid subs, people that are going to pay for like real information, something that's unique. Reporters who pick up the phone, reporters who drive out to the site, spend real time interviewing, maybe take a trip, something like this. So we're basically trying to enable that option where you've got these extra cycles back. You could just downsize and fire people if you want to shrink your business, but nobody wants to shrink their business. You want to
Right.
grow the business. If you've got these cycles, you want to basically increase quality. And so that's what we're hoping that this does. People are like, well, Gen AI in the news, it's going to be slop, it's going to be hallucinations. No, we're using Gen AI for fact checking and to increase
Yeah.
accuracy. We're using Gen AI to increase story quality by giving people more time to work on the story, the parts of the story that matter and that are differentiatable.
Yeah. And I read that you cite productivity gains of up to 90% for complex research tasks. How does that translate inside of a working newsroom? What does that mean day to day?
That is hard for me to speak to
Okay.
without talking about specific customers and things like this. Like, I can't get too into the weeds.
Okay.
I can tell you that there's one newsroom scenario in particular that I can think of that I can't really characterize, where our custom workflow that we built is so much faster that now they can cover a space that they couldn't cover before because there was too much information coming in. And they can actually hire people to use the AI to cover the space, because it was one of these things where it's like, we can either cover this whole space or we can just forget about it. We
Hmm.
know if we cover the whole space that there's subscriber revenue. So we think we can cover the whole space with Symbolic because we've got that efficiency upgrade, staff up enough of a team that we can actually get full coverage. We would have had to previously maybe dedicate an entire floor to this. Now we can just put like five, six people on it, and we
Yeah.
can get like really high quality coverage of the space with this tool. I love this example because this is AI creating jobs where you normally hear about the opposite. So I want to find more and more of these examples as we continue to push into newsrooms. I want to find more places where newsrooms are like, okay, this wasn't feasible before. Now it's feasible. Now we
Yeah.
can do this.
Exactly. And you kind of hinted a little bit about the SEO not working as well because all the AI searches and the Google overviews, and people are just getting their answers and bounce. And so website traffic is down. Does Symbolic help a little bit by maybe improving the quality of the articles and helping it being written for those AI searches to be found easier? How can publishers combat that?
Yeah, I would say that there's two things that we can do. One is we can help with internal linking. So if we have your library and you've imported all your back catalog into Symbolic and it's there in our database and we've indexed it and we've embedded it and chunked it and all the stuff that we do, it's going to be easier for you to find those back catalog pieces and link them higher up in the piece. They're things that are relevant so that you have high quality links. And so that helps with SEO. And the other thing is you can apply a custom voice, custom format. And so you can start to enforce like quality standards, style book standards, stuff like this. And the output doesn't read like AI. That's a thing that we try to focus on. Now, if you low effort, right? If you low effort and you don't work on the voice and format instructions with the platform and you're not trying to tweak it, you can get some AI slop out of it. Like, that's certainly possible. It's certainly possible for you to use our platform to create something that's not very good,
Yeah,
but it's going to meet a minimal quality bar. But we give you the tools to make something really great in way less time. And it's kind of up to you to use it. And I think that search engines are going to reward that.
I think so too. The quality, I think, is going to matter more than making sure that you've got all the keywords stuffed in there, or whatever.
Yeah, we made this decision early on. I told the team because we looked at a lot of tools, and then one of the first things people did with Gen AI was they created these like slot factories where you can do
Yes.
like keyword stuffing and stuff like this. And I was like, we're going to keep all SEO smells out of this interface. Like, I
Hmm.
don't ever want anybody to log in and be like, this smells like an SEO thing. Like, no. So we don't do any scoring. We don't suggest keywords. We're not doing any of the optim. Now, there's a market for this, right? People
Hmm.
want the SEO stuff still.
Yeah.
At some point, we will probably add some buttons for this to the chat interface. You can be like, I want to SEO optimize this article, go. And then we'll go out and we'll make some MCP calls and we'll find some keywords and maybe connect to like a third party API and we'll score it and do some stuff. And then you can do that. I'm sure we'll probably add that to the platform. But our feeling was when we were trying to sell to serious newsrooms, to serious corporate comms and PR departments, we did not want to look like we were selling them something that was like an SEO platform.
I love that though, because that forces you to go back to the basics and not just try to game the system. So, which kind of goes into this next question. What kind of guardrails or boundaries are put into Symbolic's tools to ensure that they do improve efficiency without maybe compromising the editorial judgment or accuracy or trust? Because I know many journalists and newsrooms, they're still hesitant about using AI, whether they think it's cheating or going to take their job or whatever. But What kind of guardrails or boundaries do you have that might make them feel better about using your platform?
We have a few things internally. For one, when we're doing automated fact checking and linking and things like this, we let you configure trusted sources. So if you've got a list of sites that you're just like, never link these, don't use these, are not reliable, you can share those to your org. Or if you're like, these sites are always green, like we should always be trying to link these or something like this. We have those kind of norms and the tools for reflecting that in the work process. Internally, for some of our searches and some of our research products, we'll use some curated site lists, and we would like to bundle those and publish them and make that an artifact that you can manipulate on the platform. So users have playlists on Spotify, something like this. You should be able to have a site list or a sources list. Maybe you're going to use that sources list for a fact check. Maybe you're going to use that sources list to do some media monitoring. Maybe you're going to do like research against it, a web search against it. Maybe you cover the Apple beat or something and you've got an Apple sources list and you've got it marked up and annotated. Okay, so check this forum and look for this username because he has like the good scoops, and then check this other forum, but then ignore this guy because he's always wrong. And so you'll be able to put that stuff in. These are enterprise newsrooms, enterprise corp comms rooms. Like they don't need me to tell them what to do and what not to do. They don't
Yeah.
need me to tell them, oh, this is spam. Like I'm not the nanny. I'm not the handholder. Like these are, big boy tools, grown up tools, and we're not selling this to high school kids.
Yeah.
So we're trying to make it possible for editors and editorial teams to do what they already know how to do, which is to enforce standards and norms, to curate information, and to like keep the quality bar high. And we just want to empower them to do that versus baking our opinion about what's good and what's bad into the product.
Yeah. That makes sense. And in a sense, you're helping them just do their job better and more efficient with your platform because the human judgment is still there.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we say at Symbolic. And we kind of have like a little two-part thing. Google has like don't be evil, which was their sort of informal motto. And ours is that rights holders have to get compensated and humans have to be in the loop. And those are kind of two of our core pillars that, you might call them values or something like this, but those are kind of North Stars for us, which is that we're always trying to keep humans in the loop because our way that we understand these things is an LLM is a tool for generating sequences or for discovering sequences in latent space. If I use it to elicit certain sequences of text, pictures, things like this, I'm the person that's responsible for that. You don't get to blame anything on AI. We're not in the business of the AI did the thing and it's the AI's fault.
Yeah.
I think that that is kind of fake and sad. And I regret that this is so popular of a way people will say AI did this or AI drew this picture. It won't know, man. These are tools and you did that. You used it to elicit a set of outputs and you're responsible for them.
Hmm.
So, when you publish something that comes from Symbolic, it has your name on it. It has your publication's name on it. If I'm using Symbolic to write something or to fact check something that I'm going to publish somewhere, I'm never going to send anybody AI slop. Like, this is my content. It's my thoughts. It's my ideas. I might do a rewrite with an AI of a paragraph. I might turn something into bullet points. I might be like, okay, I'm writing about AI and electricity usage. And so I need some stats here from the research that I've gathered. Then I'll just be like, can you add a bullet point list with a couple bullet points about US electricity usage recently, AI data centers versus, and then it'll spit it out. It'll give me some examples, and I'll go back and tweak. So I'll do it
Yeah.
tactically like this, right? But it's going out under my name. People are going to read it. And the same thing on my Substack. If I put something on my Substack, it's something that I
Hmm.
wrote.
Yeah.
So that's kind of our philosophy. This is a toolbox, it's a toolkit. We help automate some of the repetitive stuff, some of the stuff that takes a long time, but you still have to steer it. The humans still have to steer it, and the humans are the ones that are responsible for it. And an LLM is not a moral agent, it's not a real actor. I know that there's a lot of this agent mania and Molt book and all like I think this is all very silly. These things, they're not conscious, they're not real, they're tools for generating sequences.
Yeah.
And how we use them, like I'm the actor in the story if I'm using
Yeah.
AI. Any sequence that I get out of AI that I publish, it's my fault for putting that out into the world. Like I'm the one that did the thing.
Right. I like that you have that perspective because that's how I do it too. I use AI to help me generate maybe like a first draft, But I notice the articles are technically correct, but they are very flat or boring. They don't really have that human context added in or too many examples that would illustrate the points in the article. And so what I do is after it writes my first draft, then I go line by line and almost word by word and just double check things because it'll put something in there. And like today, I was actually writing about Molt Book and it was using these ginormous words. And I'm like, okay, our audience, we have some technical, some non-technical. So I was like, this is too big of a word. You got to cut this out. And it takes a little while, but I go section by section and then we add the perspective and human aspect back in it. And then once you have the final article, it's like, oh, that's a solid article. That's a noticeable improvement from what AI created. I don't think humans have to worry yet about AI taking over, in other words.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that you find when you work with the models as closely as we do is just how brittle they still are and how bad the output still is. It's still
Yeah.
very deficient. It still takes a lot of engineering to get a sequence from a model that is close enough that it's worth even editing,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
So that's what we find. You can't put these things in front of professional editors or writers and
Yeah.
expect this output to pass muster. And of
Right.
course, users can see it too. I mean, everybody now can spot something that's AI written. Nobody wants to read that. I don't want to read it either. And I'm in the
Right.
business of it. And if I see something on Substack that's like clearly, I just keep scrolling. I'm
Yeah.
like, downvote or whatever, right? I ain't reading all that.
Yeah.
I don't care what your bot thought. I would rather read something that is misspelled and bad from a person than read something really elaborate that is some pointless content spam.
And I enjoy breaking down the topics as well. I wrote about the Molt book today, and I spent maybe a half hour, 45 minutes first just talking to Chat GPT about this because I'm like, it looks like they're conscious or they're self-aware and all this stuff. And I'm like, I know they're not, but how does it look like this? And we broke things down. And so instead of being another article about what Moltbook is, I did it from the perspective of why it's not conscious yet and why it looks that way and different things, but it's still a good example of what agents can do, and this is a progress that AI is making. So I took that perspective instead. And I just think it turned out to be a much stronger article. And it's different now than some of the others that are out there. So,
Yeah, it's very useful for getting your bearings with a topic. And
mhm.
this is what I like about AI. This is, my kids have I actually often let them use maybe I should admit this, my work account of ChatGPT because we have access to all the good stuff as Symbolic. And so I have the GPT 5.2 Pro Max, whatever plan. And so if my kid has homework, like high school math homework, I'm just like, okay, we're gonna bust out the really good ChatGPT plan and get the right answer here and like
Right.
understand how it works. But that's how I'm kind of training them to use this because they have to pass a test, right? They have to pass quizzes and tests. And so
Hmm.
it's not like, okay, you can get the answer from
Yeah.
ChatGPT, but the bigger thing is to understand what am I trying to do? This is why we use it with the research screen and Symbolic. And then the other thing that it's good for is, I think, for prototyping. So
Hmm.
when I write, I will ask it for outlines. And 90% of the time, the value of it is I look at this outline and I realize that I don't like it. I know what I don't want. Like I didn't have
Yeah.
to write it out myself to realize that the outline sucked. I just got a bunch of outlines from Symbolic and I'm kind of looking through them and I kind of realized this isn't the article I want to write. I want to do
Yeah.
something else. I want to go in a different direction. And so I'll mostly use it to throw things out because if it feels like there's no cost to it, you can just kind of like iterate and iterate
Right.
and then kind of just check different possibilities. And then you can kind of land on something maybe that's in your comfort zone, or maybe you just start all the way over.
Yeah. I do that too because I tend to find out what I don't want from a ChatGPT response. Like, oh, I'm not really quite sure how I should approach this. And then ChatGPT will spit something out, and I'm like, definitely not that. You
Yeah, but see,
know?
that's useful. That's like valuable.
That's
Sometimes
true.
and like this has happened to me in Symbolic. I don't want to like burn anybody, but we had a screen in the app that we never fully turned on for customers. And it was something where you could build workflows. And it was a great idea. And we worked on it for a long time. And it never was super duper usable.
Oh.
And I finally just realized, you know what? I don't want to build this screen. Like, this isn't how we're going to solve this problem. It's not going to be a version. I basically don't want any version of this idea. Now, this is not a good example because this is a little bit before the coding tools really took off. So this was an expensive lesson and a programmer built it and then we never shipped it. But I quit trying to do that. I quit trying to solve this particular problem that way. And I came up with something way better
Oh, good.
because I saw the thing I didn't want. I saw the
Yeah.
thing that I asked for that I didn't know was bad until I saw it. And I'm like, that's bad.
Yeah.
And so then this is what you get from Gen AI is like you can ask it for the stuff that is potentially bad and you see it and you're like, yeah, man, that's pretty terrible. I actually really don't want that at all.
Yeah. It's too bad it was an expensive lesson for you.
Yeah.
Well, you recently also announced a partnership with News Corp. What does this partnership signal about how large publishers are thinking about AI, and what does it mean for Symbolic's broader newsroom clients?
Yeah, this is great because News Corp is they're obviously the leader in the news space, but
Hmm.
they're kind of tech forward and they have like a good tradition internally of innovation. And so this was super validating that we got selected for this. What newsrooms want to see is they want to go up the curve. And so, like as a programmer, when I'm using Codex and Claude, we're well into this zone of like, I would never ever want to go back to
Yeah.
typing out all the code by hand. Like this is so good. Like I'm so much more capable with these tools, right? And a lot of newsrooms still they use ChatGPT and they're like, yeah, output kind of sucks, or like it's good for this thing, but not for most of the stuff I care about. And so when we're able to show them something that is like way up on the capability curve, where
Hmm.
they're like, okay, yeah, this is like dramatically better than an out of the box, like mass market tool, it basically shows that the Gen AI revolution has legs. It's not all chatbots. It's not
Hmm.
all image generators or music generators. Like there are real, actual non-programmer workflows here. Programmers know all of this stuff. Programmers know how productive these tools are. People that live with programmers or hang out with programmers know about this at this point. It's not like it's a big secret. But I still think knowledge workers, it's yet to really hit. They haven't had that Claude or that moment with one of these tools where they're like, okay, wow, this just blew my mind. It just did a whole week's worth of work in like 20 minutes. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't believe this. It's getting less rare. Claude Cowork came out. And so people have been experimenting and trying. And so some people have kind of gotten up the curve, like in solo projects. Some friends of mine that are journalists, they go away for the weekend, they come back, and there's been some long thing that they have wanted to do but never had the time. And then they just did it in a weekend. They're like, okay, wow, I scratched that itch. That was amazing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's great. What we want to do at Symbolic is then make that a repeatable and everyday kind of experience
Hmm.
inside of a comms department or a newsroom where people are constantly logging in and getting like a whole lot of work done in like a shockingly short amount of time.
And as AI adoption accelerates at large publishers, what does it mean for smaller publishers or independent newsrooms that don't have those same resources?
Some of this stuff is democratizing. As always, like smaller publishers and independent newsrooms have their own challenges and they're as you know at AI
Hmm.
News,
Yeah.
it's just a different like kind of profile.
Hmm.
Let me just give an example. Like, let's say that, and these aren't for the most part real numbers, but some might be. Let's say like a decent mid-sized publisher is going to pay $1,000 for like a 1,500 word article to a freelancer. So, I mean, that's a little high, but
Yeah.
it's a good round number. It'd
Yeah.
probably be more like $500, but like say $1,000. Let's say you're $1,000 into it with the freelancer fee and then the managing editor time and like other kind of like ancillary expenses, stuff like this, you're paying $1,000 for this article that you're going to run.
Hmm.
You're going to want to fact check and you want to use some mock to fact check. And, maybe you're paying like an enterprise seat license, which is like $90 a month. And then maybe because fact check is like really token intensive, that fact check costs like $5, $10 to run the fact check. I mean, I'm not giving a real number here because I actually don't, it varies widely. We don't price the fact check separately. But like
Mm-hmm.
hypothetically, like worst case scenario, let's say that we charge you $10 a fact check, right? Which would be insane. We're not going to do that. But like, let's just say we did. For $1,000 article to guarantee the accuracy, and it's going to find issues. I fact check my own stuff again with it, and I find stuff. it's going to be worth $10 for a $1,000 piece. For a super independent Substacker with a small audience and they're running something that their friend wrote for free, is it going to be worth $10 to run a fact check?
Mhm.
Especially if they're trying to put a lot of stuff out and get their name out. Probably not, right? It's probably not going to be worth the per seat license to get the fact check capability. It's probably not going to be worth the price. It's certainly not going to be worth time for me or one of our engineers to go and sit with the Substacker and find out like what is it that they're doing that they don't want to be doing anymore that we can make a button for them to do, or they can ask our chatbot to do it. So they're not going to have any workflows that we can automate. So the value proposition is really different for a large newsroom with a budget where we can come in and talk to people on the floor and find out what the pain points are and then make automations that fit those. And they can afford to press a button that costs a couple bucks. And we can engage really good models. So like Perplexity, the reason the Google results at the top are terrible is because Google has to serve like 11 hojillion of those results a day, and they're going to use a really weak model to do this. They have to use a really dumb model because they need something that's fast and it's very, very cheap. So this kind of a stupid low parameter count model that is probably quantized down and at poor quality. So they can serve a lot of those and it doesn't kill their margins. Perplexity is a little further up the scale. They're lower volume and they have investor money that they can just burn on servicing all these requests. So they can use a slightly more, they can use a much more capable model really to synthesize results. It's symbolic. I can use Opus 4.5 to synthesize your research results. And so if I'm offering a perplexity-like screen inside Symbolic, I can crank up the quality because this is baked into the per seat licensing and we can absorb this token cost. And enterprise newsroom can absorb this token cost because it goes to real work. It's just not somebody looking for what type of bike they want to buy,
Yeah.
or their kids aren't answering homework questions. Like they're asking questions like for real stakes,
Hmm.
and there's real money on the line, and things have to be accurate and they have to be timely. And so when you're kind of in that more specialized zone, you can spend more per token, you can throw more tokens at the problem, but it changes the cost equation. So a big newsroom can do this, and maybe a medium-sized newsroom. But when you get to like the really small newsrooms that are very budget constrained, maybe if they're trying to churn a lot of content, we probably have something for them, but that's why the thing is tiered. Some things you want to pay for and some things you don't.
Yeah, exactly. And looking ahead, how do you see AI shaping journalism while keeping the human judgment at the center of the work?
I just think that's going to be up to us. It's going to be up to us to keep the human judgment centered. And because now, if you really want to read AI slop, you can do that on Facebook. If you want to read that stuff, and if there's some kind of market for it, then that's what we'll have, if that's what
Mhm.
people want. I don't think that's what people want. And so the returns to it, one way or the other, are going to go through the floor. So I think we're in a weird situation where this stuff is kind of spread in an environment. It's sort of like an invasive species, right? And the
Mhm.
ecosystem has to adjust. I think the ecosystem is going to adjust probably pretty rapidly, and people will figure out what they like and what they don't, and they'll read and consume the things they like, and they will stop reading and consuming the things that they don't like. They'll give signals back to these platforms like, "Hey, this is garbage. Don't show me this." And the platforms will find a way to filter it out. On the flip side, if the AI stuff gets really, really good, like let's say that article was about a real event and there was a real photograph there and all the facts were true. I don't really care if AI wrote it or not. Like it may be
Yeah,
interesting to me, that's sort of
right.
interesting. I guess I'm not like a doomer on this stuff. I'm kind of
Yeah.
optimistic that the ecosystem is going to self-correct.
I think you're right. I think we're in this weird transition and things are just going to shake out the way they're going to shake out, and hopefully it's going to be for the better. And I think once the Gen AI is going to get better and better, I think the uneasiness or scariness about the hallucinations and the biases, I think that's all going to kind of get itself worked out as well. And I think just keep experimenting and just keep knowing in the back of your mind that this AI is a tool, but it is really helpful in the meantime.
Yep,
Yeah.
agreed.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jon, for sharing your insights and joining us today about how AI is being applied in real newsrooms. And I know AI can feel very overwhelming, and conversations like this just help clarify that responsible, practical use is just important, and this is what it looks like. So thank you again for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And for those of you who'd like to learn more about Symbolic, you can visit their website at symbolic.ai. Keeping you connected to tomorrow. Today, this is Alicia with AInews.com.